Chapter 1. I was bleeding in the back of an ambulance, being told I needed emergency surgery, when I called my parents and asked them to watch my kids for a few hours. They said no. They were at dinner. I'm Liana Mercer, a cardiology fellow, a single mom, and for 8 years, I had been quietly paying my family's bills until the night I almost died and realized I was never their daughter. I was their backup plan. I walked out of Harbor Ridge Medical Center with my badge still warm from a 14-hour shift and my mind running on fumes. The January air in northern New Jersey cut through my scrub jacket the moment the automatic doors closed behind me. I stood for a second on the sidewalk, blinking at the parking garage lights like they were too bright, telling myself to breathe, telling myself to stay awake for the drive home, telling myself the same thing I always told myself. Just get home to the kids. My name is Liana Mercer. I was 37, a cardiology fellow in a teaching hospital that never slept, and a single mom to 5-year-old twins Mason and Wren. I had learned to keep my life in tight compartments. Hospital, daycare, groceries, laundry charts, bedtime stories, then back to hospital. I did not have room for extra problems. I did not have room for drama. I definitely did not have room to be the person who called someone else for help. That was the thing about being the reliable one. People got used to you being fine. I had parked on the 3rd level, and the elevator smelled like wet wool and stale coffee. When I slid into my car, the seat felt cold against my back. My phone lit up with a daycare reminder about pajama day and a message from my sitter Jenna confirming she had picked up the kids and would stay until I got home. I typed back a quick thank you and turned the key. The engine coughed, then settled into a steady hum. I remember thinking 2 more exits and I can take my shoes off. The highway was slick from a light rain that had started and stopped all afternoon. The wipers thumped in a tired rhythm. My hands were stiff from suturing a central line earlier, and I flexed my fingers at a red light trying to shake off the tension. A horn blared somewhere behind me. I did not even flinch. That was how exhausted I was. The world could be loud and I would still keep moving. When the light turned green, I eased forward. The rest happened in fragments, headlights rushing in my peripheral vision, a sudden blast of white, the sound of metal folding, my body jerking against the seatbelt, the steering wheel ripping to one side, the sharp, wrong sensation of my abdomen tightening like a fist, then the sickening quiet after impact like the world had inhaled and forgotten how to exhale. I blinked. My breath came shallow. My ears rang so hard it felt like the sound was inside my bones. My first thought was not about pain. It was about time, because I knew the way you know things when you have lived long enough in emergency rooms that something was very wrong. I fumbled for my phone. My fingers felt thick, clumsy. The screen had a spiderweb crack across the corner, but it still worked. I dialed 911 without looking. My voice sounded far away when I told them where I was. I kept repeating, I have 2 kids at home. I have 2 kids at home, like that detail mattered to the dispatcher. It mattered to me. The ambulance arrived fast. I remember the paramedic leaning into my window, a woman with a tight ponytail and calm eyes. She asked my name. I told her. She asked my pain level. I said I was okay because I always said I was okay even when I was not. She pressed gently on my belly and I hissed, my whole body reacting on instinct. She exchanged a look with her partner. They got me onto the stretcher. The cold air hit my face and I tasted rain and gasoline. Inside the ambulance, everything was bright and fast. Blood pressure cuff, oxygen cannula, the rhythmic chirp of the monitor. The paramedic asked about medications, allergies, pregnancy. I answered automatically. Then she said, Liana, listen to me. You are showing signs of internal bleeding. We need to get you to the hospital now. You are going to need surgery. I stared up at the ceiling panels, trying to make my brain latch onto the words. Internal bleeding. Surgery. Now. My mind went straight to Mason and Wren. Jenna was with them, yes, but Jenna was paid by the hour. Jenna had her own life. Jenna could not stay indefinitely. I said I need to call my parents. The paramedic nodded like she had heard this 1,000 times. I unlocked my phone with shaking fingers. My contacts list blurred. I found my mother and hit call. It rang. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. I tried my father. straight to voicemail. I tried again, alternating, like if I hit the right number at the right moment, they would pick up. My stomach cramped and I curled slightly, my breath catching. The paramedic adjusted something on the IV line. Her voice stayed steady. Try again. Keep talking to me. I had not called my parents for help in a long time, not because we were estranged, not because we did not speak. We spoke often, actually mostly, when they needed something explained, something fixed, something smoothed over. I sent photos of the kids. I called on holidays. I showed up when it mattered, but I did not ask. Asking came with a price, a sigh, a lecture, a comment about how I always made things complicated. And still there I was, 37 years old, strapped to a gurney, bleeding inside my own body, and the only thing I could think was, please, just this once. My mother finally picked up on the fourth call. Her voice was irritated, like I had interrupted something important. Liana, what is it? We are in the middle of dinner. Mom, I said, and my voice cracked despite my best effort. I was in a car accident. I am in an ambulance. They think I have internal bleeding. I need emergency surgery. I need you and Dad to go to my house. Jenna is with the kids, but I do not know how long she can stay. I just need you to be there for a few hours until I can figure this out. There was a pause. Not a concerned pause, a calculating pause. Then my mother said, I do not know how serious it really is. You are a doctor. You always make things sound dramatic. Can it wait until morning? No, Mom. It cannot. I heard her exhale, impatient. Your father and I are not driving out there tonight. The weather is awful and we have plans. Your sister is with us. We are finally doing something nice together. My hand tightened around the phone. My vision tunneled a little at the edges. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice even. I am not asking you to sit with me at the hospital. I am asking you to sit with your grandkids for a few hours. She said, Liana, you always do this. You always dump emergencies on people. We did not sign up to be on-call babysitters. I could hear voices in the background, laughter, the clink of glasses, someone calling my mother's name. Mom, I said again, softer now because I could feel myself slipping. I just need help. She did not say, are you okay? She did not say, I am coming. She said, I will call you later. The line went dead. For a second, I just stared at the phone in my hand, like it was an object I did not recognize. The paramedic watched my face. Her eyes softened. Do you have anyone else? My father texted instead of calling. A single line that landed like a slap. Handle it. You always do. Then another message came through, not from him, but in the family group thread. My sister Brooke posted a photo. 3 wine glasses raised in a toast, her manicured hand in the foreground. My parents in the background smiling like they had won something. The caption said, finally, a night we deserve. My breath left my body in a sound that was half laugh and half sob. It was not even about the photo. It was about what the photo meant. A choice. A statement. We are here. You are there. And that is not our problem. The paramedic leaned closer. Liana, stay with me. Look at me. Focus on my voice. I blinked hard. I could feel warmth spreading in my abdomen, a deep pressure that made nausea rise in my throat. I forced myself to nod. I said I need to call my sitter. My fingers moved on autopilot. Jenna answered on the first ring, her voice cautious. Liana, are you okay? You sound weird. I was in an accident, I said. I am going into emergency surgery. I need you to stay with Mason and Ren longer tonight. I will pay whatever you need, please. Jenna did not hesitate. Of course. Do not worry about that right now. I have them. Take care of yourself. My eyes burned. Thank you, I whispered. When I hung up, my hand fell to my lap and I stared at the cracked screen. The ambulance hit a bump and my body jolted. Pain flared and I gritted my teeth. I should have been terrified of the surgery. I should have been thinking about my kids growing up without me. I should have been bargaining with the universe the way people do when they are afraid. Instead, all I could think was how easy it had been for them to say no. We pulled into the ambulance bay, doors opened, cold air rushed in, voices called out vitals, hands transferred me from one stretcher to another, fluorescent lights streaked above me as they rolled me down the hallway. As they pushed me toward the operating room, I turned my head slightly and caught my reflection in a glass panel. My hair was a mess, my face looked gray, my eyes were wide and too awake for how close to passing out I felt. I looked like a woman who had spent years taking care of everyone else and had finally learned what it meant to be left alone. Then the anesthesiologist leaned over me, asked me to count backward, and the world went dark. When I woke up, my mouth was dry and my throat hurt. My body felt heavy, like it was pinned to the bed. The room was dim, the kind of soft light hospitals use at night to pretend they are kind. A nurse noticed my eyes open and came to my side. She told me the surgery went well. She told me they had stopped the bleeding. She told me I was stable. I nodded, but the relief did not come the way I expected, because the first thing I noticed once I could focus was the empty chair by the window. No coat draped over it, no purse, no familiar figure shifting in the corner, just an empty chair and the low hum of the monitor keeping time. I turned my head toward my phone on the tray table. No missed calls. No new messages that said, "We are here. We have the kids. You are not alone." I stared at the ceiling, listening to my own breathing, and for the first time in a long time, I let myself admit what I had been avoiding for years. In the moment I needed them most, my family had treated me like an inconvenience. And lying there in the quiet, I could feel something inside me settling into place. Not rage, not revenge, just a cold, clear understanding that things were about to change. Chapter 2. The change did not arrive in a dramatic burst. It came the way winter comes to a town that has been pretending it is still fall quiet, inevitable, and suddenly everywhere. I lay there listening to the monitor and the distant footsteps in the hall, and my mind did what it always did when I finally stopped moving. It went backward. Not to the accident, not to the ambulance. Further back. To the first time my father asked me for money like it was nothing, like it was the most natural thing in the world for his daughter to carry what he could not. It was 2014, right after I finished medical school and started residency. I was 29, then still running on the high of surviving 4 years of debt and exams and sleepless nights. I had matched at Harbor Ridge, the same hospital where I now lay recovering, and I thought I had finally made it to the part of my life where things would start to feel stable. My family did not celebrate the way families do in movies. They showed up late, left early, and took pictures mostly to post online. My mom, Patricia, hugged me with one arm and checked her phone over my shoulder. My dad, Glenn, told me he was proud, but his eyes drifted past me like he was already thinking about something else. My older sister, Brooke, was the reason. She was always the reason. Brooke was 3 years older, the kind of pretty that made people turn their heads without meaning to. She had a laugh that filled rooms, a confidence that made you believe she knew something you did not. She bounced between ambitions with the same ease I moved between call rooms. One year it was event planning, then it was jewelry, then it was a boutique line of handmade bags that she insisted were going to be huge. My parents treated her ideas like prophecies. They treated mine like a practical choice. When I said I wanted to be a doctor, my father had nodded and said, "Good. That is stable." He meant it as a compliment. It felt like a sentence. A few months into residency, I got a call from him while I was eating microwave soup in the residence lounge. I almost did not pick up because my pager had been going off non-stop, but something in his tone when he said my name made me step into the hallway. "Liana," he said, and he sounded tired in a way I had never heard as a kid. "We are in a little bind this month." "A bind," I repeated. "Your mother and I," he hesitated. "The mortgage is due. It is just tight right now. We will be fine next month. We just need a little help." I pressed my shoulder against the cool hospital wall and stared at the floor. My first instinct was to ask questions. What happened? Why? How much? But that instinct was buried under something older and heavier. The instinct to keep the peace. How much, I asked anyway. 2,000, he said quickly, then corrected himself. 2,400. Just this once. Just this once, I repeated, and I heard my own voice trying to sound casual, like this was normal. It is embarrassing to ask, he added, like he was doing me a favor by admitting it. I would not ask if we had another option. I thought of my parents' house, the tidy yard, the 2 cars in the driveway my mother's pantry always stocked. I thought of my student loans and my residency salary, and the way I had been wearing the same 2 pairs of scrubs on repeat. I thought, they are my parents. Of course I will help. I said, okay, I will transfer it tonight. You are a good daughter, he said, relief softening his tone. I knew we could count on you. That phrase lodged in my chest, not like warmth, but like responsibility. When I hung up, I made the transfer in the hospital stairwell, because it was the only place I could get a quiet signal. My bank app asked, "Are you sure?" I tapped yes without blinking. It would have been easier if that had been the end of it. But next month, my father called again. He sounded more comfortable this time, like the first ask had broken the seal. "Liana," he said, same story. "Things are tight. Mortgage is due, just for this month." And I did it again. Then it became routine, $2,400 on the first. Sometimes extra for a car repair. Sometimes a few hundred because my mother said the electric bill had spiked. When my father lost his health insurance through work, my mother cried on the phone and said, "We cannot afford the premiums," and I added $800 a month on the 15th without even thinking about it. Every time it came wrapped in the same language. "You are strong," my mother would say. "You can handle it. Your sister has it harder," my father would add. Like Brooke's chaos was a weather event none of us could control. "Families help each other," my mother would finish as if that ended the discussion. I did not argue because I did not know how. My whole life I had been the one who made things easier for everyone else. I was the calm one, the practical one, the one who would not make a scene, the one who would not need anything. Brooke, meanwhile, lived in a different universe. When she decided to move to Manhattan for her bag line, my parents paid the deposit on her apartment. When she said she needed to go to a trade show in Los Angeles, my dad bragged about booking her flight. When her line did not sell, my mother said the world just was not ready for her talent. Brooke would call me sometimes, usually late at night, her voice bright with excitement or edged with panic. "I just need a little bridge money," she would say. "Until my next order comes in." I would say, "Brooke, I am barely keeping up." And she would laugh, not cruelly, just dismissively. "You are a doctor, you will be fine, you always are." Then she would soften and say, "Come on, Lena. Mom and Dad are stressed. Do not make this harder. Just help. You are good at helping." Even when I was angry, I felt guilty for being angry. I told myself I was investing in peace. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I would stop once things settled. Then my own life cracked open. I got pregnant in 2017. It was not planned, not even close. The father, a man I had been seeing casually between rotations, froze when I told him. He said he was not ready. He said he could not do this. He kissed my forehead, like that made his exit gentle, and then he disappeared, first in pieces, then completely. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed in my tiny apartment, my hands on my stomach, my phone in my lap. I stared at my parents' contact names for a long time before calling because I already knew what the conversation would feel like. My mother answered, and I said, "Mom, I am pregnant," and my voice was so small it surprised me. There was a beat, then she said, "Oh, Liana. Well, that is not ideal timing." I said, "I know." "Are you sure you want to keep it?" she asked, like she was talking about a job offer. I swallowed. "Yes." She sighed. "Your father is going to be upset. You know what he is like about responsibility." I felt something hot rise in my chest. "Mom, I am being responsible. I am telling you because I am scared and I need my parents." Her tone changed slightly, like she was humoring a child. "You will be okay. You are strong." I waited for her to say, "We are coming. We will help. We will figure it out." Instead, she said, "Brooke has a big meeting this week. She is really anxious. We cannot be pulled in 2 directions right now." I did not even know what to say to that. The silence stretched until my mother filled it with practical questions about prenatal vitamins and whether I had health insurance like a checklist could replace comfort. When I hung up, I cried into a towel so my neighbors would not hear. The money kept going out, 2,400, 800, extra here and there. Even when I was on my feet for 12 hours with swollen ankles, even when I was throwing up between consults, even when I was lying awake at 3 in the morning staring at the ceiling and calculating how much daycare would cost. When Mason and Ren were born in 2018, I called my parents from the hospital after a long labor. I was exhausted, raw, shaking with adrenaline and fear. I said, "They are here. They are healthy. I did it." My father said, "Good." Then he asked, "So what is your plan for childcare?" My mother said, "We wish we could come, but Brooke is having a rough week. She really needs us." They did not come. Not that day. Not the next. Not the week after. They sent a box of baby clothes with Brooke's boutique logo on the tag like that counted as involvement. I went home with 2 newborns and a body that felt like it had been torn apart. I breastfed on the couch with 1 baby on each side, and my laptop open to study notes because my boards were coming up. I slept in 20-minute pieces. I learned to heat food with 1 hand. I learned to smile through pain because there was no one else to do the smiling. And still, on the 1st of the month, the mortgage payment left my account. I started tracking it in a spreadsheet one night when I could not sleep. I told myself it was just to stay organized. It was not. It was because some part of me needed proof that what I felt was real, that I was not imagining the weight. Looking at the numbers made my stomach drop. Year after year, payment after payment. It was all there. Not just money. Time. Energy. Silence. I thought about stopping so many times. The thought would rise sharp and clear usually after my father called with another urgent request. "We need help with the furnace," he would say. "It is freezing." Or my mother would say, "The insurance premium went up again," and she would sound like it was my fault. I would open my mouth to say, "I cannot." Then I would picture my parents looking at each other disappointed. I would picture my mother telling relatives that I had changed. I would picture Brooke calling me selfish. And I would fold, every time. Because the truth was ugly in a way I did not want to face. I was not giving because I felt loved. I was giving because I was terrified of what would happen if I stopped. My eyelids felt heavy in the recovery room. A nurse came in and adjusted my IV. She asked if I needed anything. I almost laughed. What I needed was a different life. When she left, I reached for my phone with slow, careful movements. My incision pulled when I shifted. I ignored it. I opened my banking app. My hands shook not from pain, but from the strange clarity settling over me. The list of transfers loaded, lines and dates regular as clockwork, 2,400, 800, more. I stared at it until the screen blurred, and then I blinked hard and made myself look again. Chapter 3. My thumb hovered over the recurring transfers like they were living things, like if I touched them the wrong way, something would bite back. The numbers sat there so calmly, 2,400 on the 1st, 800 on the 15th, extras sprinkled in between with notes I had typed half asleep, furnace car deductible emergency. I could not pretend I did not see it anymore. The nurse came in to check my vitals and asked if I had family coming by later. She said it gently, like it was a normal question with a normal answer. I hesitated, then said, "Not really." She gave me a sympathetic look and moved on, adjusting my blanket, checking my IV, doing the small kindnesses that had become strangely intimate in the quiet hours after surgery. When she left, I opened my banking app again. I went into the settings, found the scheduled payments, and my heart started thudding in a way that had nothing to do with blood loss or anesthesia. I tapped one transfer. Cancel, confirm, another, cancel, confirm. I did not make an announcement. I did not write a dramatic message. I did not call my parents to explain myself. I just shut the faucet off and watched the silence fill the room. My phone felt heavier afterward, like it knew what I had done. I stared at the screen for a minute, waiting for something to happen. A lightning bolt. A warning. A sudden flood of guilt so big it would knock me out of the bed. Instead, there was only quiet. That scared me more than I expected. I blocked my father first. Glenn Mercer. The name looked almost formal on my screen, like he was a stranger. Then my mother, Patricia Mercer, then my sister, Brooke Mercer. It felt extreme. I knew how it would look to anyone who had not lived inside my life. But I also knew if I left even one door cracked open, they would wedge their foot in and push. They always did. I set the phone down and closed my eyes. My incision tugged when I breathed too deeply. Pain radiated in a dull band across my abdomen, a reminder that my body was still paying the bill for everything I had carried. The first message came the next afternoon, not from my parents, but from my cousin Dana. "Hey, sweetie. Heard you were in an accident. Are you okay?" It was the kind of text that looked caring on the surface, but I had grown up in a family where concern was often a cover for information gathering. I typed back slowly. "Yes, surgery went well. Recovering." A few minutes later, another text. "That sounds scary. Your mom said you got really upset and kind of snapped at them." My fingers went cold. I reread it twice. Really upset. Snapped. At them. I could almost hear my mother's voice forming the narrative with her own soft, wounded tone. "Liana is just not herself lately. The accident really rattled her. We tried to help, but she was so emotional. You know how she can be." I stared at the message until my vision blurred again, not from tears, but from exhaustion. I did not answer Dana right away. By evening there were more. An aunt on my father's side. "Praying for you, honey. Family is everything. Your parents are worried sick." A neighbor from my childhood who still talked to my mother. "Your mom told me you had a terrible scare. So glad you made it. Let me know if you need anything." A second cousin I barely knew. "Hope you feel better. Your sister said you have been really harsh. I know you are under stress, but try not to take it out on them." Harsh. Under stress. Take it out on them. I set my phone down and stared at the hospital wall. The paint was a pale beige, the kind of color meant to be neutral, comforting, forgettable. It was not comforting. It was a blank space where my family was writing over me. The next morning, Dr. Aaron Miles stopped by my room on his way out of the unit. He was still in scrubs, his hair damp like he had just washed his hands for the 100th time. He stood near the foot of my bed and said, "How are you holding up?" I let out a breath that sounded like a laugh. "Physically, better than I should be." He nodded. Then his gaze shifted to the phone on my tray face down like it had done something wrong. "Your family ever show up?" I kept my eyes on the ceiling. "No." There was a pause. I could tell he was choosing his words the way doctors do when they are being human in a place that usually punishes it. "I saw the messages in the ambulance," he said quietly. "I am sorry." My throat tightened. "It is worse than the accident," I admitted. He did not argue. He just said, "If you need someone to talk to, social work can help. They can also help coordinate childcare resources, short-term support, all that." I turned my head to look at him. "I already have childcare. I always have childcare." He frowned like he understood what I meant. When he left, the quiet came back, and with it came the anger, not explosive, not wild, but controlled like a door clicking shut. They were already telling people I had overreacted. Not that they had abandoned me in an ambulance, not that they had chosen a dinner and a photo and a toast over their daughter bleeding in a stretcher. Not that my children had been left with a sitter scrambling to stay late because their grandparents could not be bothered. No. The story was that I was difficult, that I was emotional, that I had snapped. The nurse wheeled me down for a follow-up scan later that afternoon. The hallway smelled like disinfectant and cafeteria coffee. When we passed the waiting area, I saw families sitting together, bags of snacks on their laps, coats draped over chairs, someone rubbing someone else's shoulder. It made something in my chest ache, sharp and familiar. Back in my room, I checked my phone again. Another message. This one from my mother sent through an email address because I had blocked her number. Liana, I do not know what is going on with you, but this is not the way to treat family. People are asking questions. You are making us look terrible. Call me when you are ready to be rational. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. Not from fear, from the sheer audacity of it. She was not asking if I was healing. She was not asking how the kids were coping. She was worried about how I was making them look. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. Then a new message came in from someone I had not heard from in years. My mother's sister, Ruth Whitaker. Liana, it is Aunt Ruth. Can you talk? I hesitated. My Aunt Ruth lived in Pennsylvania, worked in real estate, and was the kind of woman who said what she meant without cushioning it. My mother had always called her harsh. I used to think that was an insult. Now it sounded like a compliment. I typed back, "Yes, I can talk. I can." She called immediately. I answered, and her voice filled the room with the blunt warmth of someone who did not waste time. "Sweetheart," she said. "How bad was it?" I swallowed. "Bad. Emergency surgery. I am stable now." "Did your parents come?" "No." A beat of silence, then Ruth exhaled hard. "Okay, listen to me. They are already working the family. They have been calling people. They are setting it up so you look like the problem." My fingers tightened around the phone. "I can tell." "They are telling everyone you were hysterical," she continued. "They are saying the doctors overreacted and you made a scene. They are making it sound like you demanded they drop everything, and when they could not, you punished them." My stomach turned. Even after everything, part of me wanted to defend them, to find a softer interpretation. Ruth did not give me room for that. "This is what they do," she said. "They manage the story, and they have been doing it for years. I have watched it." My voice came out hoarse. "Why is everyone believing them?" "Because it is easier," she said, "and because you never told your side. You never made them uncomfortable." I closed my eyes. The truth of that hit like a bruise being pressed. Ruth lowered her voice. "Your granddad knows. I told him. He was furious." "Thomas," I whispered. "Yes. And before you panic, he is not talking about suing anyone or dragging them into court," she said. "He just wants the truth on the table, the real truth, with receipts, with dates, with numbers. You have those right." I glanced at my phone, at the bank app still open, at the long list of transfers that had felt like a shameful secret. "Yes," I said. "I have them." "Good," Ruth replied. "Then you need to gather everything. Mortgage payments, insurance, any money you gave Brooke, screenshots of those texts from the ambulance, all of it." I felt a flare of resistance. "I do not want to make a scene." Ruth did not soften. "Liana, they already made the scene. You are just not in control of it. Silence is not neutral here. Silence is permission." I held my breath. She was right, and I hated that she was right. Before we hung up, Ruth said, "Thomas wants you to come to his place when you are discharged. There is going to be a family get-together soon. He wants you there." My pulse kicked. I cannot do a confrontation. I am not built for that. "You do not have to confront," Ruth said. "You just have to show up. Let the truth exist in a room where it cannot be edited." After the call, I stared at the ceiling again, but it felt different now. Less like emptiness and more like a waiting space before something inevitable. That evening, my phone buzzed with one more email from my mother, sent from a different account this time, like a person trying to get around a locked door. "Liana, we need to talk. Your father is very hurt. Brooke is crying. I do not understand why you are doing this. Call us and we can move on." Move on, like nothing had happened, like I had not bled on a stretcher while they toasted themselves. I set the phone down and reached for the notepad the nurse had given me for discharge instructions. I did not write discharge instructions. I wrote dates, amounts, transfers. I wrote down the names of the accounts. I listed the years like I was building a case not for a courtroom but for my own sanity. For the first time, I let myself consider what it would mean to stop being the person who made everything easier for everyone else. When Ruth texted later asking if I would come to Thomas's house after I was released, I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Yes, I will be there." Chapter 4. Thomas Whitaker's house sat on a quiet street outside Lancaster, the kind of neighborhood where people waved from porches and kept their lawns trimmed even in early spring. When Ruth drove me there a week after I was discharged, my stitches still pulled when I laughed or coughed, and every bump in the road reminded me I was not fully healed. Ruth parked at the curb and looked at me like she could read every thought on my face. "You do not have to perform," she said. "I am not even sure I can stand for 2 hours without getting dizzy," I answered. She gave a short nod. "Then sit. Let them talk. Just do not let them rewrite you while you sit there." My stomach tightened as we walked up the stone path. Through the front window I could see warm light and movement people clustered with plates and cups, the soft blur of a family gathering. It looked normal. That was the part that made my skin prickle. Thomas opened the door before we knocked. He was 72, tall even with age rounding his shoulders, his hair silver and neatly combed. His eyes were sharp, but when he looked at me, something gentler passed over his face. "There you are," he said. I tried to smile. "I came." "You did," he replied, and his voice held quiet approval, like showing up was already a kind of courage. He stepped aside to let us in. The house smelled like coffee and something sweet baking. Voices rose and fell in the living room. I recognized a few cousins, a couple of aunts people I had not seen since before the twins were born. They turned when I entered, their expressions shifting into practiced sympathy. "Look at you," my cousin Dana said, moving toward me with her arms half open. "We were so scared." I let her hug me briefly. Her perfume was too strong. "Thank you," I said. My mother appeared behind her like she had been waiting for this moment. Patricia wore a soft beige cardigan and a concerned face she had perfected over decades. She rushed forward, hands outstretched. "Oh, Liana," she said, voice thick with emotion. "My baby." My body went rigid. She had not called me her baby in years, not unless an audience was present. She tried to pull me into a hug. I let her touch my shoulders, but I did not lean in. Her hands felt light, almost careful, like she was handling something fragile she did not actually want to hold. Glenn followed my father's expression, strained like he was the one who had suffered. "There she is," he said. "We have been worried sick." Behind them, Brooke stood near the kitchen doorway, holding a wine glass, dressed like she had stepped out of a lifestyle catalog. Her eyes flicked over me, then away, a quick assessment as if checking whether I looked sick enough to justify the attention I was getting. She smiled a little too bright. "Hey, Lena," she said. "You look better than I expected." Ruth's hand brushed my elbow, a reminder that I was not alone. We moved into the living room where chairs had been arranged in loose circles. Thomas's house always had that feeling like he expected people to have real conversations here, not just small talk. For a few minutes, everyone hovered in polite concern. Someone asked about my recovery. Someone asked about the twins. I answered with short, controlled sentences, careful not to give away too much of myself. Then my mother did what she always did. She took the center. She turned slightly so more people could hear and sighed in a way that sounded tragic. "It has been so hard," she said. "I just wish Liana would let us help. But she has been so upset, and you know how emotional she can get when she is stressed." Dana's eyes darted to me, then away. My mother kept going, voice gentle wounded. "That night, we were trying to figure out what was happening. She was in shock. We did not even know if it was really serious. The way she talked, it was like everything was life and death. I told her we would talk later, but she just shut us out." Glenn nodded solemnly. "We tried," he said. "We offered to talk. We offered to work it out, but she blocked us. It is not rational." Brooke put her glass down and joined them, her expression softening into something that looked like concern, but felt like performance. "I have been so worried about her," she said. "She has been carrying a lot, and when people carry a lot, they sometimes lash out at the ones closest to them. I keep telling Mom and Dad to be patient." The room got quiet in that way family rooms do when someone is shaping a narrative. I could feel it happening like a tide pulling away from shore, leaving me exposed. My chest tightened. My first impulse was to defend myself, to say, "You left me bleeding in an ambulance. You chose a dinner over your grandkids. You sent a photo like it was a joke." But the words crowded my throat too sharp, too big, and I knew if I spoke in that moment my voice might break. I did not speak. I looked down at my hands, the faint tremor in my fingers, the pale line of my hospital bracelet still tucked in my purse, like evidence I had not been able to throw away. I reminded myself of Ruth's advice: sit. Let them talk. Do not let them rewrite you while you sit there. Thomas had been standing near the fireplace, listening without expression. When my mother finished, he did not respond with comfort. He did not respond with anger. He simply stepped forward and picked up a folder from the side table. The room shifted. People noticed the folder. People sensed structure. Thomas's voice was calm, measured. "Patricia," he said. "Glenn, Brooke, since you have chosen to speak about what happened, I am going to ask a few questions." My mother's smile faltered. "Dad, this is not necessary." Thomas did not look at her. He looked at Glenn. "Did your daughter call you from an ambulance on the night of January 17th, 2022? He asked. Glenn blinked. "She called, yes." "Did she tell you she was going into emergency surgery for internal bleeding?" Thomas continued. Glenn's jaw tightened. "She said something like that." Thomas nodded slightly, like he was checking a box. "Did she ask you to go to her home so her twins would not be left without family support while she was in surgery?" he asked. My mother jumped in. "We did not know how serious it was. She was frantic." Thomas turned his head toward her, slow and deliberate. "I am not asking how you felt about her tone," he said. "I am asking what she asked." My mother's cheeks flushed. "Yes." Thomas nodded again. "Did either of you go?" he asked. Silence. Someone shifted on the couch. A cup clinked against a saucer. Glenn cleared his throat. "We had already made plans. It was late. The roads were bad." Thomas's gaze stayed steady. "Plans," he repeated quietly. Brooke stepped forward, voice sharp with irritation. "This is unfair," she said. "You are making it sound like we abandoned her. We did not abandon her. We were trying to handle it like adults." Thomas did not react to her tone. He opened the folder. "Before we talk about what is fair," he said, "we are going to talk about what is true." He pulled out a stack of papers, neatly arranged, the kind of organization that made my stomach flip, because it meant Ruth had been right. This was not emotion. This was receipts. Thomas held up the first page. "Over the last 8 years," he said, "Liana has been sending money to Glenn and Patricia Mercer on a regular basis. She printed the records. I verified the totals." My mother's face changed. Her eyes went wide, then narrowed, like she was calculating how to spin this. Glenn's mouth opened, then closed. Thomas read, not dramatically, just plainly. "From February 2014 through December 2021, mortgage assistance payments in the amount of $2,400 per month. 95 payments. Total $228,000. A sound left someone's throat, a small, involuntary gasp. I felt my heart beating in my ears. I had known the number, but hearing it spoken aloud in that room made it real in a way it had never been when it lived alone on my phone screen. Thomas continued. "From March 2015 through December 2021, health insurance premium support at $800 per month. Total $67,200. My mother shook her head. "That is not how it was. We did not ask for all of that." Thomas looked at her. "Then why is it in your account?" he asked. My mother's lips pressed tight. Thomas moved to the next page. Additional transfers labeled furnace car repair, deductible emergency. Total $39,460. Dana's eyes flicked to me, startled now, no longer polite. Brooke's face had gone pale. She opened her mouth as if to object, but no sound came out. Thomas held up another page. Transfers to Brooke Mercer between 2016 and 2021, he said. Various amounts. Total $12,800. Brooke's voice finally burst out. That is not fair, she said. She offered. Nobody forced her. Thomas's eyes did not leave her. Did you ever tell your sister to stop? He asked. Brooke blinked. Thomas asked again, quieter. Did you ever tell her to stop? Brooke swallowed. She is the one who always thinks she has to fix everything. My mother seized on that. Exactly, she said quickly. She has always been like that. She creates these situations where she plays the martyr, then blames everyone else. My hands clenched in my lap. Heat rose in my face. For a moment, the room swayed slightly, and I pressed my feet into the floor to steady myself. Thomas closed the folder halfway and looked around the room. This is not martyrdom, he said. This is a pattern of support that has been taken for granted. Then he reached into the folder again and pulled out a printed screenshot. I recognized it immediately. The family group thread, the photo, the caption. My throat tightened so hard it hurt. Thomas held it up where everyone could see. Now, he said, and his voice did not rise, but something in it sharpened. We are going to talk about the night of the accident. My mother's eyes darted to the paper, then away. Glenn stared at it like it was a foreign language. Thomas read the caption out loud. Finally, a night we deserve, he said. The room went still, the kind of still that makes your skin hum. Thomas looked at my mother. Patricia, he asked, while your daughter was being prepared for emergency surgery, were you celebrating? My mother's mouth opened. No words came. Glenn's face hardened anger, flashing, but not at himself. At Thomas. At me. At the exposure. This is humiliating, he snapped. You are doing this to embarrass us. Thomas did not flinch. You embarrassed yourselves, he replied. I sat there silent, my pulse steadying in a strange way. I had expected to feel triumphant. I did not. I felt hollow. I felt relieved and nauseous at the same time, like I had been holding my breath for 8 years, and my lungs did not know what to do with air. Around the room, I watched people's expressions shift, confusion turning into recognition, sympathy that had been vague becoming specific. A few people looked at my parents with something close to disgust, then looked away like they did not want to be caught witnessing it. Brooke's eyes flicked to me. For the first time, she looked uncertain. My mother tried again, her voice trembling now smaller. Liana, why did you not just talk to us? She said. Why would you let it get to this? I met her eyes. My voice stayed quiet when I finally spoke. I did talk, I said. I just did not yell. No one answered that. Thomas placed the folder back on the table. He did not give a speech. He did not wrap it in a lesson. He simply said, the truth is in the room now. You can do with it what you want. I sat very still, feeling the weight of every gaze, and for the first time I did not feel like I had to fill the silence to make anyone comfortable. The truth had been said. It did not need me to decorate it. Chapter 5. I left Thomas Whitaker's house with my body feeling heavier than it had when I walked in, even though I had not raised my voice once. The sun was already low, turning the street a soft gold that made everything look gentler than it felt. Ruth walked beside me to the car, her hand hovering near my elbow, like she was ready to catch me if my knees decided to fold. In the passenger seat, I stared out the window while she started the engine. My stomach rolled the way it did after a long case when adrenaline drains out and leaves you shaky and hollow. Ruth glanced at me. You okay? I swallowed. I do not know. She nodded like that was the most honest answer in the world. That is fine. You do not have to know yet. We drove in quiet for a while. My phone buzzed twice in my purse, then again like something was trapped inside trying to get out. I did not reach for it. I already knew who it would be. When we got back to my apartment in northern New Jersey, Jenna's car was still in the lot. The warm light in my window made my chest tighten. Home meant Mason and Wren, their small voices, their sticky hands, their need for me that did not come with conditions. Jenna opened the door before I could fumble with my keys. Her eyes widened when she saw my face. "Oh my God," she said softly. "How did it go?" I stepped inside, and the smell of macaroni and crayons hit me ordinary and grounding. Mason ran from the living room in sock feet and crashed into my legs. "Mommy, you back?" he said, his words tumbling out too fast. Wren followed, more cautious, staring up at me like she was checking if I was real. Then she reached for my hand and held on tight. I crouched slowly, careful of my healing incision, and pulled them both close. My throat burned. I breathed them in shampoo and sweat and the faint scent of whatever Jenna had cooked, and the emptiness inside me shifted into something else. Jenna kept her voice low. "They were good. We did puzzles. They asked about you a lot. I told them you were getting better." "Thank you," I said, and my voice sounded rough. She waited a beat, then asked, "Do you need me tomorrow too?" I shook my head. "Not tomorrow. I have a few days off. I will be okay." Jenna looked like she wanted to argue, then thought better of it. "Okay, call me if you need anything for real." After she left, I got the twins bathed and into pajamas. I read 2 stories instead of 1 because I could not make myself stop at the usual boundary. When they finally fell asleep, Mason with his hand curled around the edge of his blanket, Wren with her face tucked into the pillow. I stood in the doorway for a long time, just watching them breathe. Then I went into the kitchen and sat at the table. The apartment was quiet in that late-night way, the kind of quiet that makes you hear your own thoughts like they have been waiting all day. I took my phone out of my purse. There were 9 missed calls and a string of emails from my mother. There were voicemails from my father. There was one message from Brooke that was just a single line. "We need to talk." My first reaction was not anger. It was a wave of guilt so familiar it felt like muscle memory. Even after everything, part of me wanted to fix it, to smooth it over, to make sure nobody stayed uncomfortable because of me. I stared at the screen and felt something in my chest twist. Was I too harsh? Did I let it go too far? Did I humiliate them? Did I deserve the cold looks, the murmurs, the way my mother's face had tightened when Thomas held up the receipts? Then I remembered the ambulance ceiling. The panic in my throat when I realized I might not make it. The way my mother's voice had sounded irritated, not scared. The photo in the family thread. Finally, a night we deserve. My guilt slowed like a spinning wheel losing momentum. I opened my bank app again, not because I needed to see it, but because I needed the truth to be something I could touch when my emotions tried to lie to me. The scheduled transfers were gone. Canceled. Quiet. The next morning, my father showed up at my door without warning. I saw his car through the blinds, and my stomach clenched. A younger version of me would have opened the door immediately, ready to apologize for making him drive. This version of me stood still and watched him walk up the steps like he owned the place. He knocked hard. "Liana," he called through the door. "Open up." I did not move. He knocked again. "I know you are in there." Wren padded down the hallway behind me, rubbing her eyes. "Mommy." I crouched and kissed her forehead. "Go back to bed, honey. I will be right there." I waited until I heard her little feet retreat. Then I opened the door just enough to stand in the frame without inviting him inside. My father's face was red, jaw tight, the look he wore when he wanted to be the authority in the room. "What the hell was that yesterday?" he snapped. I kept my voice low. It was the truth. "You let him drag us like criminals," he said, "in front of everyone." I held his gaze. "You dragged yourselves." His eyes flared. "Do not talk to me like that. We are your parents." I felt the old pressure rise, the instinct to soften, to back down. I swallowed it. "And I am your daughter," I said. "The one you left to figure it out alone." He opened his mouth, then changed tactics, voice turning wounded. "We did not know how bad it was. Your mother was worried. Brooke was worried." I nodded slowly. You were worried about your plans. His expression tightened. This is what I mean. You always twist things. I stepped back half an inch still in the doorway. I am not twisting anything. I am done paying for a relationship I am not allowed to need. He stared at me like he had never seen me before. So you are just going to cut us off, he said, like it was a threat. I took a breath and felt the steadiness in it. I already did. He looked past me into the apartment as if he expected to see my mother, the twins, someone backing him up. He found only quiet. He left without saying goodbye. His footsteps down the steps sounded sharp, offended. After that, the consequences came, the way consequences come in real life. Not like a movie, not instant, not dramatic, just steady. My mother stopped emailing after a week when she realized I would not respond. Brooke called twice and hung up before it went to voicemail. A couple of cousins unfollowed me on social media. One aunt sent a text about forgiveness and family unity. Ruth texted back on my behalf and told her to stop. I heard through Dana that my parents were looking at refinancing, that they were upset Thomas had embarrassed them, that they were telling people they were victims of my overreaction. That story never fully died. It just lost its audience, and my life quietly started to expand into the space they had taken up. 2 months later, when my fellowship schedule shifted and the commute started wearing me down, I moved closer to the hospital. It was a smaller place, a second-floor unit over a bakery, the kind of apartment that smelled like bread in the mornings. The rent made me wince, but for the first time, my money was my money. I opened a 529 account for Mason and Wren and set up monthly contributions. The first time I scheduled the transfer, my hands shook not from fear, but from the strange feeling of investing in my children instead of my parents' house. I started sleeping a little more. I started eating real meals. I stopped checking my phone every time it buzzed. The world did not end. Some nights after the twins were asleep, the guilt returned in soft waves. It was not about money. It was about identity. If I was not the fixer, the provider, the steady one, who was I? One evening, Brooke finally texted something longer than a demand. I did not realize it was that much. Mom and Dad are falling apart. You could have just told us. I stared at the message for a long time before I replied. My fingers moved slowly, deliberate. I did tell you. For years. You just did not want to hear it. I am not cutting you out. I am cutting the access to my wallet and my peace. If you want a relationship, it has to be one where you do not need me to suffer to feel close. She did not respond right away. The next day, she wrote back. I do not know how to do that. For the first time, I felt something close to empathy for her, not forgiveness, not excuses, just the recognition that she had been raised in the same system, rewarded for taking and never taught to notice the cost. I typed a final message. Then learn. I am learning too. That was the last real exchange we had for a while. No dramatic reconciliation, no neat bow, just a boundary holding its shape. A few weeks later, Thomas called me. His voice was calm as always, but softer. How are you holding up, kiddo? He asked. I looked at the twins drawing at the kitchen table, their heads bent in concentration, and felt something loosen in my chest. Better, I said. Not happy, but better. That is the point, he replied. Peace is quieter than chaos. People mistake quiet for weakness. After I hung up, I sat for a long time thinking about that. I did not win some flashy victory. I did not crush anyone. I did not even feel triumphant. What I felt was lighter, like I had set down a weight I had been carrying so long I forgot it was optional. If you are listening to this and you recognize yourself in it, if you have been the one who keeps giving because it is easier than being called selfish, I want you to hear me clearly. Setting a boundary does not make you cruel. It does not make you ungrateful. It makes you honest. If you have a story like this or a version of it, I would love to read it. Leave a comment and tell me what you wish you had said or what you finally did say and how it changed your life. And if you want more stories about quiet revenge, real consequences, and the kind of justice that starts the moment you stop paying for love, stay here with me.